The Raiders need a quarterback. I think we can all agree with that. If you agree with that statement, click the like button right now, because coming up here on today's show, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 quarterbacks most likely to start for the Silver and Black in 2025. It wasn't an easy list to put together, but I am very confident that this list of quarterbacks will give us better results than our current ones right now. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And before we get into the top 10 quarterbacks most likely to start for the Las Vegas Raiders in 2025, our show sponsor, Panda Sups. I'm rocking some Panda Sups gear, and you guys can too. Code Raiders, 20% off at pandasups.com. I'm talking, get your hands on some protein, on some BCAAs. If you're like me and you struggle going to sleep after the Raiders lose a football game, then I promise you got to check out the Sleepy. It's going to knock you right the heck out. So the way that I got these guys ranked is from 10 all the way down to 1. 10 is the least likely of the group. 1 is the most likely to start for this team next season. Let's go to number 10 here. Got to target Riley Leonard in the draft, quarterback from Notre Dame. This is his first season with the Fighting Irish. And to me, I always look at what certain coaches, what certain GMs do, and I do believe that Tom Telesco is going to be back next season for the Silver and Black, which is why Riley Leonard makes this list. I know that he loves prospects from Notre Dame. The fact that he's going to probably be a day 3 pick means this. If the Raiders miss out on a QB in round 1, if they miss out on a QB on day 2, then you could potentially look at a Riley Leonard to compete with an Aidan O'Connell, and the best man ends up winning. I will admit, I like his poise. I like the leadership skills that you see, even from his time back at Duke. A lot better of a runner than what he ends up getting credit for. And at 6'4", 215 pounds, has got that prototypical size that you're looking for in a QB. I have liked from what I've seen from Leonard at times. Not too flashy. Again, if you told me that the Raiders are going to roll with Riley Leonard or Aidan O'Connell in 2025, I'd go, how the hell did we get here to this point? But hey, just saying, he at least makes the list. Let's go to number 9 here, and it involves a trade. It's Kirk Cousins of the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta drafted Michael Penix Jr. 8 overall in the 2024 NFL Draft, and trading for Cousins would only cost the Raiders $27.5 million in 2025. Also, he's got 0 guaranteed on his contract in 2026 and in 2027. So if you're the Silver and Black, and let's say they figure out a way to win a few extra games here, maybe you re-sign a few of your key free agents and you go, all right, we are a quarterback away yet again from being able to go out there and compete. Let's say that you don't love any of the draft prospects. I don't know what it is. I like the draft prospects a little bit more, but what if Telesco, what if AP, whoever the new head coach, doesn't like the prospects? Maybe AP is still here. My point is, if you don't like the draft, the number 1 player that you could potentially trade for that makes sense, in my opinion, is Kirk Cousins, and he's number 9 here on this list. Let's go to free agency now. I got Justin Fields coming in here at number 8. The Raiders tried to trade for Fields this past offseason, which was reported by Fields himself, and he's going to be a free agent in 2025. I don't see the Steelers giving him a long-term deal unless Russell Wilson gets hurt soon, and then Fields ends up riding off into the sunset, taking him to the playoffs and winning the playoff game. So he's going to be a free agent. If the Raiders decide to keep Luke Getsy, maybe Fields is even higher on this list. But I know this. If the Raiders keep Getsy and aren't in the top 10 of draft picks, I would say Justin Fields is the most likely option to be the Raiders quarterback in 2025. But those 3 options right there, I already know that some of y'all are rolling your eyes going, Mitch, bro, you got to give me some better options than that. Don't worry. I got some better options coming up, and a lot of them involve the draft. So how about this? Predict it. Look into your crystal balls right now. Who's going to be the Raiders quarterback in 2025? Let me know down in the comments. My answer after this YouTube ad break. What kind of video would it be if I just gave you my answer right away for number 1? I'll tell you this. I'm at least hoping that the Raiders are able to get one of my top 3 quarterbacks on this show this offseason. And all 3 of those quarterbacks you can find in the 2025 NFL Draft. Let's go to number 7 here of what they could do. You could just keep Aidan O'Connell at quarterback. And this, again, would make me want to throw up. But, you know, Aiden's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks at the time that I'm making this video. And he is expected to return at some point this season. If AOC balls out the final 4 games of the season. Like, think about how bad this season has gone. If AOC goes out there and gets a win in the final 4 weeks and we go 4-0 with Aiden in the month of December and January, there's going to be a lot of people that are going, we got to keep Aidan O'Connell as our starting quarterback next season. Because not only do wins take you out of potential to draft a QB, it also is a little bit more showing that Aiden, yet again, at the end of last season, was able to get better and better and better, and maybe he saves a few jobs. I'll tell you this right now, I don't want this option to happen, and I do think that Aiden will be on the team next season, and I do think that Gardner Minshew will end up getting cut by the Silver and Black this offseason, or they're going to end up trading him for a 7th-round pick in the 2026 NFL draft, as that's all you're going to get for him. But let's be real. If the Raiders' plan is to start Aiden, Gardner Minshew, or any quarterback currently on this team in 2025, I think every single Raider fan is going to absolutely lose their shit. Let's go to number 6 here on the list of who could potentially be the Raiders' quarterback this season, or 2025. It's Quinn Ewers from Texas. And I don't know how I feel about Quinn. Kind of gives me some Jay Cutler, Derek Carr vibes, and what do I mean by that? There's some times when I watch Quinn Ewers play and you're like, this guy's the best quarterback in college football. And then there's other times you watch a few throws that he makes and you're going, how the hell is Quinn Ewers even playing college football? Like, I know that he struggles throwing the ball down the field, and one of the things that I need from QBs in today's day and age is the ability to throw the ball down the field. Ewers' feet are super inconsistent, and I do think that Ewers needs to go somewhere and sit for 1 to 2 years, probably even do like the Jordan Love path before you're confident that he's going to be able to go. Because from a tool standpoint, he's got the tools. He's got the arm strength. I think that he's a good leader. He's got a lot of intangibles, but then he's so raw as a prospect where you don't want to put Quinn Ewers with Luke Getsy. If you had Ben Johnson as your head coach or a Ben Johnson type offensive play caller, hell yeah, I would take a guy like Quinn Ewers. But he is number 6 on this list because I don't know if he's going to go in round 1. I still think that he's going to go in round 1. I just don't know if I would take Quinn Ewers in round 1. Here's one thing that I need everybody to do. If you want the Raiders to draft a quarterback in the 2025 NFL draft, hit that subscribe button because this season, this offseason, the amount of quarterback videos that I'm going to be doing, it might make a few people sick to their stomach, but we got to be able to face the facts. The only way that you're going to get out of this shitty room of purgatory that the Raiders have been in for a long time is finding your franchise guy. So please forgive me on helping the Raiders trying to find their franchise guy. Let's go to number 5 here. It's Carson Beck from Georgia. And this is another quarterback prospect that I don't know how I feel about him. I will say this. Scares the hell out of me when I look at him. I'm just going to be real with you. And he's probably going to be drafted, not probably, he's going to be drafted in round 1. Maybe in the top 10. If you would have asked a lot of NFL draft analysts before the season started, who's going to go number 1 overall at the quarterback spot, I think a lot of people would have said Beck. It's clear to me, though, he misses Brock Bowers. He misses Ladd McConkey. But he does kind of remind me of Jared Goff, where there's sometimes when Jared Goff gets it cooking, just like Carson Beck in the second half of that game against Alabama. He was cooking. He had his mojo. He had his confidence, and he was rolling with that offense. But then you also see the Jared Goff where you're like, this guy's horrific. Haven't seen it in a while because the Lions have been so talented. But, like, if you're the Raiders and if you draft Carson Beck, you got to take a page book out of what Dan Campbell did in Detroit and just trying to put as much talent as humanly possible around Jared Goff, because if you expect Carson Beck to be able to carry your team, you're going to struggle. This is a guy that struggles against pressure. You need your offensive line to be much, much better. You've seen the turnovers go up much higher because he's asked to do more. Georgia is throwing at a higher rate than they have in a long time under Kirby Smart. Right now, the Georgia Bulldogs are throwing at about 67% of the time. Years past, last year, for example, were throwing about 49% of the time. They're putting more on Beck's plate, and he has not been able to live up to the bill. That's just a simple fact. Let's go to number 4, and hear me out. I'm not saying that Dillon Gabriel is better than a lot of those other quarterbacks. This is, again, a list based on what I think is most likely to happen. And I will say that Dillon Gabriel is a quarterback that Raider Nation should keep an eye on simply because Telesco has had a thing for Oregon quarterbacks. He liked Bo Nix. He drafted Justin Herbert. And Gabriel is a very accurate quarterback. He is undersized. I don't love a lot of the skill set that you see. I know that a lot of y'all are Oregon fans that watch this show and you're like, I've been telling me, go watch Dillon Gabriel tape. I've seen a lot of the Dillon Gabriel tape, and he is a very mediocre quarterback, and he's a great college quarterback. But I do not think that his skill set is going to be able to translate to the NFL level, especially behind this offensive line, especially with our skill position players. He is likely, I'm going to say, a day 3 pick, might be able to sneak into the top round, maybe round 2, round 3, depending on how far Oregon makes it, especially if they make a deep run and he wins some big-time games late. But he is very capped in what he is going to be able to bring to the table on a consistent basis. I like Dillon Gabriel. 5'11", that's pretty freaking accurate. That might even be a little bit generous. Like, the small QB, this is basically me if I was the quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's go to the top 3, because earlier in the show I said that I want the Raiders to get one of these top 3 QBs. And I know this. A lot of people that watch this show often probably know who these 3 quarterbacks are, but you don't know the order that it's going to be in. If you're new to the show and you've never seen this, guess what? I hope that the Raiders get one of these 3 quarterbacks, because it would change my life. Actually, literally, it would change my life. Today's show, though, is a huge shout-out to Panda Subs. It's owned and operated by a diehard Raiders fan, and if anybody wants to get any of the products that you see up on screen, go to pandasubs.com, use code Raiders for 20% off. That link is going to be available to y'all down in the comments. I was mentioning earlier, it's hard for me to go to sleep after a Raiders game because I get myself so worked up about it. You take a scoop of this, out cold. You give yourself 30 minutes, maybe an hour, you're going to be sleeping. Promise you. Some of my favorite Panda Subs protein options. This is all the ones that they have available right now, but because this is that time of the year, Cinnamon Toast Cereal is just absolutely hitting for me right now. Also, the one that I just recently went back to, Campfire S'mores. Campfire S'mores, Cinnamon Toast Cereal, the 2 that I've been really crunching on because of the season. I'll also say, because I've been trying to get in a little bit better shape, been working out. Taking BCAAs after a workout is very important. Also taking BCAAs after a Raiders Report watch party to make sure that my body's not too dehydrated is also very important. If you're like me, we have a lot of fun during shows, don't get me wrong. We drink a lot of beers, which also leads to you getting dehydrated, believe it or not. We do Happy Duds, which is important. But with BCAAs, take a scoop of this after a workout. Take a scoop of it before you go to bed if you're not feeling great. You're going to wake up feeling much, much better. Shout out to Panda Subs for sponsoring the Raiders Report. Let's go to Jalen Milroe here at number 3 from the Alabama Crimson Tide. If Antonio Pierce is still the head coach of the Raiders, and if Tom Telesco is still the GM, I might bump up Jalen Milroe a little bit more because I think it fits what AP looks for in a quarterback. He is going to be a top 10 pick. The Raiders will need to be in the top 10 to have a chance at Milroe. Quite frankly, I don't think being in the top 10 is going to be a problem. Being in the top 5, I also think it's going to be pretty easy for this football team. He's got a powerful arm. He is an incredible athlete. The speed that he has already at the QB position, he's going to compete with from an athletic standpoint. Guys like Jalen Hurts, guys like Lamar Jackson, guys like Jaden Daniels. I'm not saying he's as good of a quarterback as those guys, but from an athlete standpoint at the quarterback position, Jalen Milroe can hang. And there's not many guys that can run a 4.3 at the QB spot. His footwork needs a lot of work, and Milroe needs to be able to land with a certain team that has a good quarterback coach, that has a good OC, that has a offensive-minded head coach, or a head coach that can delegate in the correct ways. If I was Milroe, I wouldn't want to come anywhere close to the Raiders right now. But if you add a new OC, you get some different looks there on that offensive side of the football, Jalen Milroe could be a very good leader for a football team that, quite frankly, needs a good leader with some thick skin, because you got to give Milroe credit. A lot of people challenged him last season, and since being challenged, has stepped up, and he's answered it. He's had some up and downs this season, but you need a thick-skinned quarterback because it's not easy being a part of the nation. Let's go to number 2. This is my favorite quarterback in the 2025 NFL Draft, and for people that have been following me since March, this is the quarterback that I would take number 1 overall this season. I don't care what team you are. Cam Ward is the best quarterback in the country. I love his poise. I love how calm that his demeanor always is, which, again, is something that a quarterback, a leader, is going to need. The nation gets loud. It's not an easy task being the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. So what do you need? You need somebody that's always going to be able to be cool, calm, and collected, but also reeks of confidence, which is what Cam Ward does. Does he turn over the football from time to time? Yes, but he's also gotten a lot better at it. And he's gotten better and better and better. You go back and look at the way that he played quarterback at Washington State compared to the way that he's playing football right now for Miami. These guys are cruising on offense. They haven't played some of the teams that, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, some of these other quarterbacks that I've mentioned have gone up against. Their schedule's been a little bit easier. But here's your front runner for the Heisman. 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Nobody's been able to slow down the Miami Hurricanes. But my favorite thing about Cam Ward, when this team needs a big play, when this team needs a drive, he gets it done. And that's a quality that I look for. I said it last season, the quarterback that reminds me the most of Jayden Daniels from the standpoint of went to a smaller school, went to a bigger school, got better and better and better, and now look how Jayden Daniels is doing in the NFL. I know quarterbacks, and that's how I saw Cam Ward, and that's why I'm not surprised Ward's doing what he's doing right now. But let's go to number one. The number one quarterback most likely to be the Raiders QB next season. It is Shedeur Sanders. And I'll tell you this right now. I think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. I know that I want Cam Ward, but I do think Cam's going to get drafted higher. And the reason why that I'm going to go with Shedeur is because Tom Brady loves Shedeur and has already worked with him this offseason, and they have a solid relationship. And Mark Davis said that Brady is going to have influence of what the Raiders are going to do at the quarterback position. Mark Davis already, just a few weeks ago, joked with Sanders and this could be your home. You could say what you want about Mark Davis being the owner of the Raiders, but here's one thing I do know. Mark Davis loves money. Nothing I think Mark Davis cares about more is money. And quite frankly, there's not another quarterback in this year's draft. There hasn't been a quarterback, I think, ever that's going to be able to generate the money that Shedeur Sanders will generate to whatever team that ends up drafting him. And if you're Mark Davis and you want to compete and being one of the highest, most profitable teams in the world, Shedeur Sanders is the guy to do it. I've often said that I don't know if the Dallas Cowboys will ever get surpassed in terms of which team is truly, America's team, or which team is the most worth the most money, most profitable. Thanks, Chugs. If the Raiders draft Shedeur Sanders, I think that they have a chance. Why? Look at what Deion has done from his HBCU to now at Colorado. Nobody even knew what Colorado was realistically in college football. Now, I think that they get the most eyeballs per week than any football program in the country, the Colorado Buffaloes. Think about that for a second. So if Shedeur comes to the Raiders, Deion's going to get some attention there. And Deion and Shedeur have already said that one of his destinations that he wants his son to go to is the Las Vegas Raiders. And they've already made it known that there are certain teams that they will not play for. So I know that there's a lot of things going into this equation, but a lot of these stuff is starting to add up. Brady, yes. Mark Davis, yes. Deion, yes. Shedeur, yes. There's not another NFL team that's going to have a chance to have a top 5 pick that with all those things have aligned. Shedeur Sanders, I'm telling you right now, if I was a betting man, will be the Raiders quarterback in 2025. So one more time here. Here are the Raiders' top 10 most likely QBs to be under center for the Silver and Black Week 1. If you want to take a screenshot, please do. Just make sure that you tag me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Mitchell Renz 365.